Happy
Cool.
Friday, everybody. Welcome back to the diDNA Dialogue. My name is Josh, and today we have Keith Abbey, the VP of Publisher Growth with Sovrn. Keith, to kick us off, can you tell us a little bit about your background in the industry and maybe a little bit about your story?
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for having me, Josh. Happy to be a part of this, and looking forward to a good conversation. My name is Keith Abbey. I'm VP of Publisher Growth here at Sovrn. I've been here at Sovrn for about 5.5 years. I actually started here as an account manager back in 2015, late 2014, I think. Late 2015, other way around. It's 2021, right? So I came into Sovrn, and I really I had a little bit of experience working with kind of technology providers in the advertising space, mostly focused on the agency side of things, building tools that helped collect like user generated content and things like that. And then kind of, bounced around to a few different areas where, I was really interested in trying out some other types of technology, and then ended up, when I moved out to Colorado, found Sovrn and was really excited by a number of things, but particularly the focus on independent publishing and how we can actually help publishers build and remain independent. So that's really what attracted me. And then, once I really started getting into things, it was kind of like the wild, wild west of header bidding had just launched and was gaining some traction. Video was really starting to grow, and the industry was, just kind of on the cusp of things like really building out some processes around SPO and things like that. So it's kind of a fun time to join in. And really like kind of getting involved on the header bidding side of things really like spawned my interest in how publishers can take a little bit more control over their own revenue, their own business as a whole. And I think that has been something that has kind of remained our main focus at Sovrn over the years, and something that like I really enjoy is we're always building and always thinking about how can we help publishers do this on their own. And I think that that's something that's really important for everybody in the space, especially as we look into the future. I think that's a little bit about me, my story here today. I run our publisher growth team, which is really focused globally on how we go out and introduce Sovrn to publishers. Our main focus truly is just tell us about your business, tell us what your goals are, and we'll see what we can do to help. We've got a number of different ways in which we can do that, either through our ad exchange or through our affiliate network, or a number of our other products, some of our data services. But our end goal is really just to learn everything we can about you as a publisher, and then offer solutions to help, whether that's through us or not. And I think that's really like how my team tends to, go out and market and learn from publishers, and then we bring that information back to our product teams and our demand teams and all that, and just try to grow from there. So I think that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it.
Very cool. I like it. I feel it's funny because when you're actually trying to service the people that you're trying to work with, they tend to actually want to work with you. So it's interesting to hear that perspective from the sales side.
It's one of those things where like when you look at the space, like everyone knows like the LumaScape, charts or whatever with all the companies that exist, in our space. I think that's generally kind of a poor representation of how things work, but a good representation of how many companies exist here. And when you look at the motives of those companies, so many of them are focused on revenue for themselves. And we've seen that pop up time and time again, of companies that they find a way in which they can, do some arbitrage here and there, or they can put some tech on page and gather some data, or things like that actually just, generate revenue for them, but aren't really focused on their customers.
Right.
And I think that, for us, it's always been true that if we focus on the customer, and we focus on how we can help publishers grow, then the rest will fall into place. And if we can really focus on how do we drive value for our publishers, for our advertisers and merchant partners, that's really the end goal. And the rest will happen.
Right. Completely agree. So before diving into maybe describing Sovrn, even though I don't think Sovrn needs that much of an introduction, but you talked about jumping on with Sovrn when header bidding really started to catch with the rest of the industry. What
Mhm.
made you pick Sovrn really out of, I think it was technically Rubicon at the time, not Magnite as it is now, but all the other SSPs? Was there a specific reason that you went after Sovrn, or was it just location? What was the specific reasoning there?
Location did have something to play with it, just
Yeah,
being Sovereign being based here in Colorado, it was a little
right.
bit easier to kind of get to know them a little bit. Um, but generally, like I really liked the feel of the company, not just from like a size standpoint. You know, we're a little bit smaller and in terms of people, and you know, a little bit more agile, I think, in some ways. A little bit more of a startup type feel still to this day, even though we've been around for a long time. But really the focus on, like, one of the things that I really liked was we didn't have minimums for publishers like that we would work with. It could be any size of publisher. You could use our platform as long as you had good quality content, and you were willing to put in the work. So I really appreciated the fact that, you know, we were trying to, that Sovereign was really trying to help smaller, mid-size independent publishers grow their business. And that was actually really important to me because that's where I get a lot of my content from. That's where, you know, I think there's a lot of interesting things outside of just big news networks where you can spend some time and you can learn a little bit. And yeah, that's one of the big things that really attracted me to Sovereign.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think working with you guys now, I think I think we've seen that in the current offerings that you guys have. So can you share a little bit more about where Sovereign is today and how that mindset and that culture that you guys have had in terms of helping those publishers, in my opinion, kind of structured what you guys offer to publishers today?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question. So I think, like, for us today, like we're looking out into the space and we see like a number of different challenges and opportunities for publishers. Obviously, the big thing that's on everybody's mind is what do we do when third-party cookies are removed from Chrome?
Yeah.
We're already seeing that, you know, in a number of other ways, but that, in addition to data privacy concerns in general, how publishers handle those. And then I think one of the big things that we really saw last year with the impacts of COVID were, how do publishers actually start to diversify their revenue streams and grow their business outside of just display advertising or video or anything like that. So for us today, kind of like taking in all of that, you know, we really look at you know, the main areas in which we can then help publishers. So our tools are really focused on really our core advertising business that exists and has existed for a while. I don't think that display advertising is going anywhere, especially
Right.
with some of the numbers that we've started to see from, you know, Google and Facebook over the past few weeks. But you know, we want to be able to support publishers in that way and have give them tools and insights into how they can actually grow their business through display advertising. But in addition to that, you know, we've made some acquisitions over the past few years that have helped us kind of deliver more tools and products to publishers. A couple of years ago, we acquired a company called VigLink, which operates a really large affiliate network. And then a few years before that, we had acquired a company called OnScroll, which is based in London, that really focused on tools for publishers to help them understand engagement and viewability. So with all of that, you know, we kind of look at our products have a lot of value today for publishers in terms of driving revenue. Like we can monetize as a header bidding partner or an OB or any of those ways. From a display standpoint, we can also really help on an affiliate standpoint. We're plugged into a massive merchant network, and we can, you know, help you monetize clicks. We also broker like sponsored content deals and all of that. And then our engagement and viewability product called Signal is actually a really impactful way for publishers to measure and then activate on engagement and viewability on their page. so like those are really interesting ways in which publishers can drive some revenue through those products. But kind of looking ahead, I think the biggest thing that we're really focused on now is how do we marry all of that together for publishers in a solution that actually allows them to just simply log in, see everything that they need to see about their site. Not only how they're monetizing, but what are the interesting pieces of data that they can capture? How can they leverage that data? Where do they do it? There's a number of focuses that we have on either building out deals and segments based on engagement that we can then help publishers drive value for. We've done a lot of tests and have a lot of studies that actually prove that engagement leads to higher click-through rates, which advertisers love to see. And then on the other side of that, with commerce, we have a lot of other insights available for publishers that can help them categorize their users based on their purchase intent. And that, coupled with engagement data layered onto the exchange, there's a lot of ways in which we can help publishers understand their user base a little bit better, take ownership of that first party data that they have moving forward. I think that that's a huge thing for publishers to kind of keep in their back pocket. Is the deprecation of third party cookies is a huge opportunity for publishers, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to help them capture that. So that's really kind of like where we sit today and where our focus is moving forward.
Right. You touched on a powerful piece there, and that was the cookies going away. I think I just saw on LinkedIn this morning, it was another article on cookies disappearing. So as you mentioned, display is going to be around for a while. Video is starting to really kick off, but identity is the big hot topic right now. So what are you guys doing at Sovrn to create a product or a solution or bring something to the publishers to help them do that?
Yeah, so there's a number of things that we're really working on. The biggest things that, and I try to like break it down because like sometimes this stuff can get complicated, especially for me. So I try to break it down into simple terms of understanding or aggregating data and then activating data. So for us, we're running a number of tests like on the activation side, which would be taking IDs that are, third-party IDs or first-party IDs from publishers, either matching that to our data assets or other IDs that we have stored, and then passing those through in the bid request through pre-bid. We're working on that in a number of different tests right now, in which we can actually pass a third-party ID through a pre-bid request. A DSP can then pick that up, and then outside of having to use a cookie, we can still understand the user and what they might want to see. So there's a good amount of intent behind that. I think that's really the biggest thing on the activation side is being able to pass those IDs through a bid request and transact off of them.
Right.
Some of the other things that we're looking to do on the activation front are, like I kind of alluded to within Signal, is help publishers build out different segments of their audience. So, we have a vast exchange network. We've got a vast merchant network. There are a lot of, users that we're interacting with through all of our publishers, through all of our, different sites that we're either monetizing clicks on or serving impressions on. So what we can actually do there is, help a publisher understand, take a little bit of the information that they have on their user set already, amplify that. And then we can help them understand and segment that audience so that then they can either set up deals on their own with it, or we can include them in deals on our behalf or on their behalf. So that's another way in which we can kind of drive revenue contextually outside of the third-party cookie. And then that kind of also ties into some of the like augmentation or just kind of understanding aspects of first party data that we might be able to help out with. Like I said, we've got this vast data lake that we can actually use to help publishers amplify their network. We can also help them authenticate some of their users today and are looking for ways to do that in the future. So right now we can take IDs that publishers might have. We can match that to something like a hashed email. We can match that to our hashed email base and we can tell them a little bit more about that user, or we can take a cookie that they might be able to have. We can match that to our database and allow them to authenticate a little bit more of their traffic. So those are a number of tests that we're working on right now with a handful of publishers, so that we can see the end goal is really, how can we help publishers understand more about their audience, own that audience, and then activate that audience. Because I think that that's going to be one of the biggest things when we get past the death of the third-party cookie, is that's a valuable tool for publishers to be able to understand and then utilize.
Yeah. In the understanding part, I feel is, at least on our side too, because we work primarily with publishers. I mean, we work across the limitscape, but publishers tend to be one current client of ours as well. And the understanding and what's actually going on for the loss of the third party cookie. Do you find yourself educating more than diving straight into how Sovrn's actually impacting the first party data that they already have, or amplifying the data so that we can have some extra third party data? Do you feel there's more education on that, or do they already know what's going on when you jump on the phone with them?
Yeah, it's a wide spectrum. I'd say most of the conversations are really like, I guess there are a lot of education on both sides. There's a lot of things that we're doing and we're running at that we want to tell publishers, hey, here's something you can try. Here's something you should be thinking about. I'd say most of the conversations that we have, our publishers are asking us, hey, what are you doing about this? I do think that, when this kind of settles, it's going to be the duty of an SSP to actually help publishers solve this problem.
Yeah.
And I think others in the industry are kind of looking at SSPs to do that as well. So I do think we're right in testing what we are and trying to figure out how we can actually help, publishers drive more value after third-party cookies go away. But yeah, I think that's like a lot of the conversations are, hey, what's Sovrn doing to try and solve this problem? And, there's a number of things that we'll say, hey, wait and see, because we're working on some tests, or, hey, here's a test, do you want to be included in it, or something like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of it right now is very much experimental, trying to build out different ways in which we can partner together, different things that we can run, have some different ideas. There are a number of publishers that we work with that are, very large, that they've already got it set in stone, or at least they've got a big plan already ready to launch. But even them, they're still asking for, an opinion here and there, or they're looking for specific tools, whether that be like a DMP, or, for instance, a large publisher might be looking to use our Signal product to learn more about engagement specifically, or something like that. But yeah, it's very conversational. It's very much about what do we do here, and how is Sovrn going to poised to help us do that. And I think we take a lot of that back in a lot of our conversations with the rest of our product teams and internal teams here. Is this is the problem that we have to solve today, and that's really where all of our focus is right now.
Yeah, it's almost, as a publisher, it sounds like there wouldn't be a reason not to talk to you guys. And I think it's also because of the original, which you had mentioned earlier, of the focus on helping and empowering publishers. And that's coming through your actions as well. There's a lot of people that say we're here for publishers, SSPs especially. And at the end of the day, they're not leading the charge on identity and actually being like, hey, it's actually the SSP's job to do this right now.
Right.
We're not going to say, hey, good luck, publishers. So that's pretty empowering. It's cool to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely a good period of time where, we were having these conversations, but we didn't have anything around it. We were just kind of having the conversation and, kind of, water cooler talk almost of over Google Hangouts, because,
Right.
COVID world. But a lot of those conversations were really about, where do we even start? How do we do this? And after a few months of running a bunch of different types of tests and POCs, and having a lot of conversations and starting to gather a lot more feedback from publishers and buyers and others in the industry, we've started to put together a little bit of a roadmap of what the steps are to actually get there, and what we're doing from a product standpoint, and what we're doing from a product standpoint, and a development standpoint, and how we can take publishers along the way. So more of that is solidifying. So now, yeah, I think if you were to talk to us now as opposed to 6 months ago, we might be able to actually like walk you through that a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I think there's just going to be more of that to come. But yeah, previously it had all just kind of been like back of the napkin math kind of stuff, and
That's cool though.
we'd figure it out. But we're on our way. I don't think
So I feel that's where the solutions come from though. It's
right.
it's the water cooled conversations. It's the back of the napkin over a drink, and all of a sudden this is what we're gonna have 6 months later, and it's gonna work.
Right, yeah, and it was just very clear that like there wasn't a solve here yet, or there isn't a solve here yet, and we have an opportunity to help publishers do that. So let's get to work.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so that's a great segue into that water cooler conversation with a publisher. So if you were at that water cooler and we weren't doing Google Hangouts, what kind of advice will you give a publisher in the industry right now? Like your one or two big pieces of advice. We can't leave the water cooler until you take this away and use it.
Yeah. I would say start thinking of your first party data, if you haven't, as your own asset. How do you use it? How do you leverage it? How do you drive more value from it? I think that, kind of as like going back to the beginning of the conversation, as header bidding a few years ago allowed publishers to take control of their ad stack, this allows them to take a little bit more control of their business. And I think they need to see it as an opportunity and really start talking to other companies, talking to their SSP partners, talking to their service providers, whatever, and asking these questions and making sure that like there's a plan for it. And I'd say the other thing is, and this is what publishers have told me, and I've seen it be successful, is revenue diversification. How can you drive more revenue on your site, whether that be through subscriptions, whether that be through added deals through audience segments, or whether that be through adding commerce, looking at things like sponsored content and more affiliate programs, or just kind of like widening your reach when it comes to advertising. I think those are really the main points that I think will set publishers up for success, because not only does that revenue diversification help in case something changes in the space, it also gives them access to a lot more of that first party data that is their asset to use, and that I think is really important.
Yeah, I feel it's almost intertwined, like the revenue diversification, figuring out a different way to pull revenue in for your site outside of just ad revenue, kind of ties to that first party data and
Right.
what's coming down the pipeline. So it's kind of get prepared for both, but one's definitely going to impact the other.
Right. Yeah. It expands reach a little bit more, but it also like helps you confirm a little bit more about that audience and build it out a little bit better. If you're running like a niche site that is focused on like, multi-day hiking trips or something like that, like your audience is very specific. So also be thinking about where can I expand that view of my audience. And I think that's one thing we're really trying to help is, a person who goes to a website like that goes to a number of other websites in our network. So it also helps us to tell that publisher, here's what that user looks like on your site, but here's what they look like elsewhere. Here's what other interests they have. And that can help publishers from a contextual standpoint appeal to a wider advertiser audience when third-party cookies go away.
Right.
Yeah.
So for the publishers that just listened to what you had to say and now probably want to talk to you, what's the easiest way for them to get a hold of you and Sovrn?
You can email me directly. It's just kabbey@sovrn.com, or you can go to our site sovrn.com, and you can reach out to somebody on our team through one of our forums or anything like that, or you can just email support@sovrn.com, and we'll be happy to reach out to you. Hit me up on LinkedIn if you want, whatever you want to do. I'm just sitting here on Hangouts all day waiting for publishers to talk to you. So feel free to reach out at any time.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, everybody watching today, thank you for watching the entire video. And if you have any questions, comments, things you'd like to see on the next dialogue, go ahead and leave a comment below. Keith, thanks for jumping on today.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. This was great.
Yeah, talk to you soon.